name is Hannah Gaston, and I'm the coordinator of school programs at Liberty Hall Museum. This here is Liberty Hall Museum. We are a historic house and gardens museum in Union, New Jersey. And we belonged to the first elected governor of New Jersey, whose name was William Livingston. And after Livingston lived in Liberty Hall, the Kane family moved in. The Kane family are a very influential political family in the state of New Jersey. Now, we've been a museum for about 20 years, and even though we are a history museum, we also love science. And even though I am not a scientist, I want to show you that anybody can be a scientist. So welcome to our little mini video series, Science Experiments at Liberty Hall. Today's video will be all about colonial food preservation techniques. And before we start, I need to thank Dr. Kim Specrotella from Kane University, who allowed us to use her science experiment in our video. The big question we are going to be looking at in this video today is how did colonists preserve food when Governor Livingston was alive in the 1770s? They didn't have refrigerators and they don't have freezers, so what did they do? Well, here at Liberty Hall, we have something that they use to help preserve food, and that is the smokehouse. Now, as you see, our smokehouse has a brick floor and it is a wooden structure. So how colonists preserved meat in their smokehouse is they would take salt and they would put salt on the meat, then they would hang the meat in the rafters of their smokehouse. Then with their brick floor, they would light a low, smoky fire. And it's important that the floor is brick because, of course, brick doesn't burn. They would let that low, smoky fire burn for about 2 weeks, curing and preserving the meat that was hung in the rafters. Now, some of you may ask, what would meat taste like if it was cured in a smokehouse? Well, I think the best thing I can compare it to is beef jerky. It would be tough and it would be salty, but it would preserve that meat without needing a refrigerator or a freezer, which of course Governor Livingston did not have. Have you ever cut open an apple and not eaten it right away? What happens? Well, the apple turns brown. Have you ever wondered why this happens? Well, let me explain. Apples turn brown because of a process called oxidation. Oxidation essentially means that the chemicals in the apple are reacting with the oxygen. So when you cut open an apple, or when you peel an apple, those chemicals are being released and reacting with the oxygen. Essentially what this means is that the apple is rotting, or the apple is spoiling. Now, if you can prevent oxidation from happening, this means you can also, to a certain extent, prevent rotting or prevent the apple from spoiling. Colonists, like Governor William Livingston, didn't understand the term oxidation. They didn't understand the chemistry behind it, but they did know they needed a way to prevent food from rotting and spoiling. So what they did, they used certain ingredients like salt or sugar or acids like from a lemon juice or even things like vinegar to put on fruits and vegetables to prevent oxidation from happening. Now what I am going to demonstrate to you today is this process. I'm going to take these 3 different ingredients and cut open an apple into 4 slices. And I'm going to put each one of these ingredients on one separate slice of the apple. With the 4th slice of the apple, I'm going to leave that completely untouched. That's going to be my control group. Now in science, a control means something you leave untouched. This way I can look at the apples and say, what will happen if I leave the apples untouched? How brown will they get? Then I can compare that apple slice to the apple slices with these 3 ingredients on them. What we need to do now is gather our materials. I have all my materials right here on the counter. I need some salt, simple syrup, which again is just sugar mixed with water, and of course lemon juice. I also need an apple. I'm going to cut my apple, so I'm going to have a knife here. If you're with your parents or your grown-ups, please make sure you have your grown-ups help you cutting the apple. What else do I need? I am going to need 4 bowls, 1 for each apple slice. I'm going to need 3 teaspoons like I have right here. And of course, if you're cutting the apple, you're going to need a cutting board. And then I made signs. So when I put each of my apple slices in each of their separate different bowls, I can label which bowl goes with which apple slice. All right, so if you need to get your materials, go right ahead and get them right now. You can pause this video, don't worry, I'll wait for you. All right, everyone have your materials? All right, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is take our apple and cut it up into 4 pieces. Now again, I said, please have your parents or your big people help you with this cutting process. All right, we're gonna cut this into 4 slices. And then we're going to take our 4 bowls here and put 1 apple slice in each bowl. I'm gonna move my cutting board and my knife out of the way. All right, now we're going to take our 3 ingredients, and we need to put a little bit of each ingredient on each separate apple slice. So we're gonna start here with the salt. Take one of your spoons, got a little salt on your spoon, and you wanna pour the salt on the open part of the apple. All right, now you want to make sure to label this bowl as your salt bowl. So I have my salt label right there. I'm going to move my salt out of the way. Next, we are going to take our simple syrup. Again, take a spoonful of the simple syrup and just pour it over the open part of the apple. And again, we want to label our simple syrup bowl. And last but not least, with your last spoon, get a little bit of lemon juice on your spoon. And you want to pour that lemon juice over the apple as well. And don't forget your lemon juice sign. And of course, your last apple is going to be your control group. So here I have my control group sign. I'm going to put it right there next to my control group apple. So now we have our 4 apples here with these 3 different ingredients on them, and we are going to see which ingredient works the best to prevent oxidation. So what do you think? I'm going to make a hypothesis, and I think the lemon juice is going to work the best because I know that sometimes I put lemon juice on apples when I don't want them to go brown. But what do you guys think? Write your hypotheses down and let us know what you think. And then of course, we'll see in a little while later, we'll see which one works the best. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to set a timer on my phone for about an hour, and in an hour we'll come back and see what our apples look like. We'll see which one has oxidized the most, which one has oxidized the least, and then we'll get to talk about why we think that happened. See you guys in an hour. Welcome back, everybody. How did you spend your hour? Are we ready to look at our results? Well, let's take a look at what my apples look like. Now, we can certainly see here with the control apple that oxidation has happened. We see all these brown spots on the apple itself. Now let's look at the lemon juice covered apple. This apple, we only see a few brown spots on it, but we see that the whole apple has kind of turned this yellow color. It's definitely not that bright white color it started as. And now we move to the simple syrup covered apple. And we can really see on the simple syrup covered apple is that there's a sheen or a layer of sugar that has formed on the apple. And we also see that there definitely are some brown spots on this apple. And last but not least, we look at our salt covered apple. Like the simple syrup covered apple, it definitely also has a sheen or a layer of protection around the outside of the apple, but unlike the other apples, this apple really has not turned brown or even turned yellow at all. This apple is still that crisp white color it was when we started. So if we're going to go back to our original hypothesis, we were asking which of these ingredients would best preserve the apple. I said it was going to be the lemon juice, but it turns out I was wrong. Actually, as we can clearly see, the salt best preserves this apple. Lemon juice comes in second place, and the simple syrup comes in third place. Now, why does this happen? Why do these different ingredients work differently? Well, the salt over here, the salt actually draws water out of the apple through a process called osmosis and prevents oxidation from happening. It also creates this protective layer on the outside of the apple that we can see there. Simple syrup works the same way as the salt. It creates this protective layer on the apple. And the lemon juice, we don't see this protective layer, but because lemons are acid, it'll actually inactivate that oxygen, thus preventing the process of oxidation. Colonists like William Livingston ultimately had to eat the food they were preserving. So now we are going to taste these different apples with these different ingredients on them and see if we still think the salt-covered apple wins. All right, let's start with the control apple. We'll just cut a little bit off right here and try it. All right, tastes like an apple. All right, the lemon juice apple that we have here. It still tastes like an apple, but you can definitely taste the lemon juice in the apple. Let's try this simple syrup-covered apple. It's very, very sweet. And last but not least, let's try this salt-covered apple. Oh! It definitely does not taste good. Definitely the lemon juice wins for the best tasting preservative to use. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you had a lot of fun with this apple experiment, except maybe for tasting that salty apple. Hope you come back and join us for some other videos. Next week we'll be learning about colonial refrigeration. I know I said that colonists like William Livingston didn't have refrigerators, but they still figured out a way to use that process. If you're looking for other online learning resources, you can check out our page on our website at libertyhall.kean.edu. That's Kean. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email the museum at libertyhall@kean.edu. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.